Hello, are you out there? It's Mark with Redo Over, and we are back for our in-depth tutorial episode 3. Now, I will point out that I did a very specific population tutorial, but it's not one of the episodes of this initial playthrough of the game where we're going to talk about everything we're doing and breaking down why we're doing every step, every choice, and really kind of getting into like how and why you think about playing the game. But check out the population thing. We had left off with selecting a few hex improvements to get our colony going. This is our core world, Earth, for the Terrans. And we are focusing on the Colonial Leadership Council first. It's essentially nearly a free building. It's always going to show up. You want to build that right away because this building is going to give you just a nice little population cap, and it unlocks the leader screen back on the main galaxy screen. Okay, then we're going to do some manufacturing hexes, then we're going to do some research hexes, then we're going to do some food hexes, and yeah, that'll keep us for like the first 4 or 5 years of the game. Now, as we build these manufacturing hubs up, these hexes, it should speed subsequent production because we have more hammers, we'll produce faster. But yeah, we were going to focus on this final pane over here in the colonies. And at that point, we can advance to turn 2. We're still on turn 1 here. But up at the top, Earth is run by the governor, D.L. Bradley. Now, D.L. Bradley is a very specific hero for the Galactic Civilization games. He is a Superman. His stats here are Intelligence 13, Social Skills 13, Diligence 14, Resolve 13, Loyalty 100%. He is the sovereign. Essentially, this means he is the ruler of our civilization, for all intents and purposes. And innovative? What is it? What is innovative? Hold on right here. Innovative. Increases progressivism, ideology, and +2 intelligence. Oh, that's cool. All right. So up at the very top, though, for Earth, Earth is a Class 28 world. Now, you will find planets out there, whether they be gaseous or terrestrial, doesn't really matter in this game. They will be anywhere from a 0 class, meaning dead. There isn't a single resource you can extract from that planet, to over class 40. I think on some of my core worlds, I've boosted some up to over 40. What does that mean all in between? We'll talk about it in a moment. I will say, though, that there are many archaeological anomaly, artifact type of things, little events that will allow you to, bit by bit, bolster worlds. Even dead worlds that are 0 can be boosted to, say, class 5 and provide your species with some useful resources. Or as they call them, inputs. Inputs meaning what is coming in raw from the planet. Are you getting mineral inputs, technology inputs, wealth inputs, farming inputs, or cultural inputs? Those are the inputs. They go into a given colony. The colony processes, works with, and spits out outputs. And you'll notice very specifically that although Earth has 3 mineral inputs, it will output 4.3 after processing them. And the research here is 3, but Earth will output 4.9. Interestingly, the food inputs are 12, but Earth only outputs 10.9. Well, I wonder where that food's going. It's going into people's mouths. Mystery solved. Tutorial over. We'll get into it here, folks. But yeah, up at the very top, class. Where's that 28 coming from? I wonder if I count up these hexes, I'll get 28 hexes? Let's try it out. Let's start with North America. 3, 6, 7, 8. Down to Central America. 9. South America. 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's start over here at the Horn of Africa. No, not the Horn of Africa. Sorry, the bottom of Africa. Cape Hope? Is that what they call it down there? We are 13, right? Sorry. I gotta stop interrupting myself. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. On to, what is this? Thailand over here. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Wow, Europe and Asia are so small. Hey, listen, if you're not North America, you ain't shit. No, sorry. It is conspicuously tiny, though, that Asia and Europe are just like, it's like, really? You don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. It's not really Earth, folks. It's fantasy Earth. But it is 28 hexes, so mystery solved. Now, as you gain the ability to upgrade a planet with some powerful artifact, or you gain terraforming research, you'll get random little islands you'll just lift out of the ocean here in the middle of the North Atlantic. It's just boom. You can fill in the Mediterranean. You can make Australia a thing. So, yeah. And you could easily boost a planet beyond 40. In general, you cannot colonize any planet that's less than 10. 10 is the minimum. I take that back. Anything that's above 0, a 1 or more, you can colonize. But you cannot make it a core world, meaning where you can get into the hex view that we're looking at right now, unless it's 10 or greater. That's the cutoff. So 1 through 9, it can provide inputs. You go to Mars. All right, we colonized Mars. It's like, cool, but you don't get into Mars. Mars is just this little world that puts out a couple research and a couple of production, and it feeds into Earth because they're in the same solar system. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So for planets that are 10 or greater, and in general, greater than 20 would be like kind of amazing category, and that's going to give you a lot to work with. A world that's less than that, you can make it a core world, and you'll actually be able to make quite a bit out of it. But yeah, you want to look for 26, 28, 30s. Those are going to be the really sweet worlds. You want to put a lot of your resources, a lot of your time and effort, and you're going to assign a leader to it. And that actually is what you're saying. Well, what's the difference between just a colony and a core world? A core world has a leader assigned. And we do that through the leader tab, which we don't have access to yet because we have not unlocked the leader screen until we build this colonial leadership council. Yeah. So, but every civilization starts with one core world. So that's where the class comes from. Cool. Yeah. We might be at this for a while. Yeah. I am sensing a plus hour long tutorial episode 3 here. Earth is terrestrial. There's a variety of different planet types. Jungle, desert, paradise, ocean. Yeah, there you go. So terrestrial means a world balanced with multiple biomes. These are great targets to colonize and then assign a governor to make into a core world. There you go. And you'll find that as you read over tooltips in this game, they've done a very good job of sort of soft pushing the information. You have to read a little bit into it. Some of the tooltips I've found, I assume, are just color and do nothing, but that's a wild-ass assumption because right here with terrestrial, they're saying, yeah, you're a human IRL. You're probably going to play the Terrans early on as you play the game, and so if you assign a leader, a governor to a world, you can make it a core world. That's all in terrestrial. It has nothing to do with being terrestrial. It's just they're giving you information about how to play the game via the terrestrial tooltip. And I think that's kind of cool. It makes it so that the game, your knowledge of it really feels like it grows organically. Because it does. I mean, you're going to learn to play. Oh, I'm showing way too much chest here. Let's button this up a bit here, folks. I don't want to get anybody too hot and bothered. We're going to take that up a touch. Okay. So yeah, what's the other one? Civilization capital. The heart of your civilization, its growth, and its power. Sure. This is the main one. Okay, we talked about D.L. Bradley. Interestingly, D.L. Bradley more or less comes across the same way a pop would. But I'd say pops have a little more features than leaders. I do not think you could take a leader and put them into the population, and into the general population. I believe they are stratified and maybe are not the exact same things, possibly. They seem to be pretty tightly linked, though. Up here, we can see, though, with our leaders in particular, I'm seeing an intelligence of 13 leads to a research of 26%. Social skill of 13 leads to gross income of 26%. And probably approval of plus 13. Influence is a 6.5. Gee, I bet you that's half. That's probably social multiplied by 0.5. So almost all of the stats in the game for people, for leaders and pops, are going to come down to we multiply it by 1/10 or divide by 10, whatever. Multiply by 1/10, multiply by half. It's 1-to-1. A 6 int equals a 6 this. We double it or we quadruple it. There are some things like eventually you can get a quantum science, quantum physicist is a job for your people. And I believe it's not. Yeah, a scientist I think is double your int. I think a quantum physicist is quadruple your int or something like that. So yeah, at any rate, the numbers matter. Anyway, we've looked at DL enough here. Let's jump down. Here's the status report. This is the general status report for the core world. It's tourism. Tourism essentially is a income stream based off of the size of your influence bubble in the galaxy, all tied together. Now, as you colonize other planets and build space stations, your influence bubble, like the grid of hexes in the neon blue for Terrans, will grow and grow and grow. And I don't know if that's literally a function of how many hexes are encompassed within your influence, but ultimately, early on, tourism does very little because you have very few hexes under your influence. But when you control half the sector, I think tourism can become more potent potentially than your tax rate, your wealth income, because it's comprising such a large section of your sector of the galaxy. That's my general feel, but I get that impression that tourism is a mid to late game feature more so than an early game feature. So don't worry about tourism yet. You have no buildings for tourism yet, so I think I'm correct on that assumption. Nextly, cultural points per month. Our capital city generates 1. There on the main galaxy screen is an entire culture tab. I think it's like the little yin-yang green-blue circle down there. And ultimately, most civilizations start out by just generating 1 culture every turn. It's a very slow thing to build up. You could spend an entire gameplay just following one of the culture threads, one of the trees, and getting it built out. Maybe not even finishing the 1. Now, you can do special builds that will get you a lot more culture. I've gotten a build that gets over 4 or 5 culture a turn. Special buildings and other stuff. And we could talk about that at some point way in the future. But yeah, our culture, by the way, for the humans is we are, what are we? I think we're progressive. We chose that when we created our Terrans and did a little customization. There's nihilism, totalitarianism, pacifism, whatever. I think we're progressivists as humans. Maybe egalitarian. Yeah, don't sweat it. Okay. But yes, this number is very hard to move. Very hard to get to change to anything but 1. I'm just going to, with many of the species you play, civilizations you play, it ain't going to budge from that. So FYI. Pollution here, 9, we'll just straight up read up. Quality of the environment of the planet. High pollution will reduce the growth rate of the citizen and the food production on this planet. That's what it does. You reduce pollution, you'll grow faster, and you'll produce more food. Higher pollution goes, the worse it is for those things. That's more or less what it affects. That's all it affects. Interestingly, with the status report, you see there is a little slider bar because you can have more than a 3x3 grid. You could have 10, 11, 12 things showing up in here. Why is it flexible? Because if you reduce your planet's pollution to 0, you will not see a pollution icon at all under the status report. It's not a status, it's just 0. So if you don't see it there, or crime, right now our crime is 12%, you could pretty easily get crime to 0 and the crime icon will disappear. It just goes away. It's no longer something that needs to be reported on, which is interesting. I actually kind of find that cool. So this little status report layout is not going to be the same for every colony. I'll just warn you right now. A lot of them won't have any tourism whatsoever. Stuff like that. Okay, nextly, crime. Super simple. Where's our crime coming from? We've got a criminal or 2. Yeah, we might have a couple criminals in our population. We'll look into that in a moment. But crime reduces the income of your colony, as well as making it more likely to produce new citizens as criminals, which in turn raise crime. Citizens also suffer an approval penalty if crime is too high. Less so if they're a criminal, though. That's right. Criminals love criminality. So What crime is going to do is just straight up rob from your piggy bank. You get less input, and it will breed more criminals. Now, I don't know if when a new population is created, no, I do know. I'm sure anytime a new population is created, it's going to get totalitarianism or nihilist or criminal. But whether they're created with that, your populations can get new traits, and your leaders can get new traits even after they've been born. So I don't want to say that it's possible that a non-criminal can become a criminal, but certainly something could happen that could make one of your people a religious follower, and the way religion would show up under their criminality. They could be a criminal who's a religious order practitioner of the way, or something like that. Yeah. So they can gain special interests, and your leaders can as well. So interesting. But yeah, so that's what crime does. Crime is something that, as you develop the right technologies, is pretty easy to handle. I've never dealt with the high crime problem myself. You can certainly assign a leader that is a criminal that could attract criminality. And I don't want to say there aren't some small benefits to maybe having crime, but in general, I see it as an impediment. Although I'm sure there are a couple of civilization abilities that rely on crime and criminality. I think there's one where it's like you're friends with pirates or something. So, all right, yeah, you guys are gangsters. In which case, crime is probably good. Okay, let's keep moving. Control. Our capital city provides one control per month. Your ability to force immediate effects such as protest suppression, construction rushing, executive orders, Now, I would say control per month is probably the second hardest thing to get after culture. But culture is distinctly harder. There are quite a few. Your control will go up beyond a +1. You will get it to a +2, +3, +4. I think I've seen mine go as high as a +9 per turn. And I wasn't even really working on a control build. So it will grow over time. But yeah, initially it's slow. But control is something you can use right away to varying degrees. Now, in my population tutorial video I put out yesterday, it's like a 25-minute video that really digs into the pops. We talk about how you can select the job of, say, this citizen here. I can click it, click on them, and bring up the orders. I can train this regular citizen as a farmer. I can imprison them, or I can train them as a worker. There are some other jobs I have not gained the technology to access yet. That's right. No one in my civilization can become a scientist because we haven't invented scientists yet. So, but I pointed out only to say that every one of these job assignments takes a single control point. So that's right. Every control point you gain each month, you see here we're sitting at 65, we could easily reassign little jobs or imprison our initial 7 population, just a point here, a point there, and it's instantaneous. Jobs switch right away. So that's a nice way to fiddle with your colonists if you want to get a bit more production, a bit more food, a bit more whatever. Or if you have a criminal, and you'd be like, I don't want criminals, I'm going to imprison them. You could do that. I'm going to point out, this is something I don't think I spoke about in my special population tutorial video. Each one of these pops is, in a very real sense, roughly equivalent to having an extra hex. And I want you to think about them that way, is that although Earth right now is a class 28 planet, in actuality, it is really a 7 + 28. It is a class 35 planet, in my opinion, because each of these pops gives us so much, kind of similar in line to what something like an improved research place. We're going to build one of these production areas, and it might give us a +2 to manufacturing, or a +20% to manufacturing, or something like that. Some tiles can get really, really powerful, but you can get individual pops. I've seen one of my scientist pop yield over 19 research by themselves. Late in the game, but it's like, yeah, your pops are worth a lot. So I would like everyone to consider a pop to be as valuable as any hex on the world. So really value and respect your pops. The nice thing about Gal Civ 4, though, is that if you want to play a more laid-back game, or you don't know that much, you're not playing on impossible mode, you can ignore your pops. You can just let them ride, let them grow, and you don't have to move them, look at them, train their jobs, ever imprison them. You can just let them do their thing, and you can still enjoy the game and have a good, solid game. So it's kind of like it's like going out to dinner but not ordering dessert. That's how I look at it. Can you really enjoy dessert? Yeah, absolutely. But do you need to? No. You can still have a great meal and a drink and have a good time with never looking at the dessert menu. So the pops are always going to be there. In my special 25-minute video on pops specifically, is always going to be there if you want to really dive into them. But let's see. Let's keep going, though, here on the status report. This is the approval. Approval is a composite view of all the pops approval. I see 7 people on the approval chart here, ranging from 67 to 46%, and that corresponds with my 7 pops. It is name for name. Like this fellow here, Bao Tui, is in fact on the list. Bao Tui, he is at 42%. Oh, and actually, I can mouse on each one of them individually. Let's see, can I see Ben May? Yeah, is that Ben May? And then Yara Mill. Hold on, I'm trying to see if it switches up here. Give me a sec. I got a 1350 negative 20. 1350 0. Yes. So Ben May, I'm getting a Ben May's approval here via this. I'm holding down the shift key, by the way, to keep these tooltip windows open. But yeah, that's Ben May is at a plus 13 for the governor, plus 50 because he's human, plus 0 for scientists. He's ambivalent towards scientists. I don't really give a fuck. Okay, so let's go from here now and let's actually find Ben. Where are you, Ben? Ben's going to be a guy. Here we are. Now, I'm on Ben's face, but if I go to Ben's smiley face, this is his approval window, and sure enough, here we are. These are, in fact, Ben's approval stats. Plus 13% to governor, plus 50 for human, plus 0 fucks given for scientists. He just doesn't care about science. Whatever. Okay, so ultimately, that's really drilling down. You have a composite approval for the whole world. You have individual approvals for each individual colonist. By one critique here for... Sorry, I have a lot of critiques for Stardock, but a critique I will make is that trying to poo-poo your individual pops and do things to adjust and make this one happy and not this one is really kind of unnecessary. Ultimately, you can just get very large macro level positive approval mechanics such as buildings and other things, leadership, whatever, that will just boost everyone's approval. And I have never had to even remotely fiddle with trying to satisfy an individual pop on any of my worlds. So it's a missed mechanic. It's a mechanic they put all this work into, but it just doesn't matter. And even if you think, oh, I'm going to micro in, I'll squeeze out a couple percent here, I'm going to do this. The reality is you give it 20 turns and you'll have invented some technology that will make all the little micro work you did completely superfluous. So I almost, yeah, I don't know. It's so cool and crunchy and like digging down into these little numbers that just don't matter. I don't know. It's a miss. It's unfortunate. Yeah. Unless they're going to make more of a game between the pops themselves and more interrelations, but it almost feels like there's so much to do in the game already. I don't know that would really be worth it. I don't know. Maybe Stardock fans, if you got very specific combinations of traits for a given pop with approval, like for a given person, that it could generate not AI generated, not generative missions or events, but custom, like bespoke, hard-coded events, scripted events. And the only way to get it is to get a very special combination of a certain person, a certain species, with certain approvals, with certain traits, and then this mission, this like 1 in 100 event happens that you may play this game for a year and never see, That's the one place where I can see all those little numbers mattering, is that you're hiding cool special stuff. Now, I understand that as a game maker like Stardock, I don't know if their team is dozens of people or hundreds of people. You really don't know. And I've spent plenty of my time hobbyist making games, and I'll tell you where it really grinds down. You can make a cool engine, like graphics and moving shit around, but coming up with like the minutia of the game, like the individual quests, the individual spells, items, bosses, that's where it just takes time, creativity, typity to make those unique things happen. So I get why Stardock leans heavily into the generative quests, generative anomalies. It's because it allows less of their people to produce a massive feeling game. But it does get a little samey. Yeah. But listen, there are entire windows on this game I've yet to open, and I've got over 100 hours into it, and I'm really enjoying it. So even in the end, if I stall out at 400 hours of play on the game, it was well worth my money, and I think they made a good game regardless. Now, will it bring me back for 2,000 hours of play, like some of the other classic space strategy games? We will see. But I think if Stardock is going to really get this game polished up in its first 12 months of full release, I think we're on month 5, but by the end of the first year of full release, which we're in that year now, 5 months in, I think that they've got to come up with some real... I think, yes, have the generative stuff. This is my opinion here. So that you can have replayability, and you can play to any scale. You can play massive galaxies with a bunch of sectors or tiny galaxies, and it's going to feel like stuff's happening. But they need, not unlike Stellaris, to have a hard scripted list of specialty events and scenarios that you got to play through, or that you can play through, and that you'll find uniquely on different playthroughs, that you don't hit all 100. And this is the thing, it doesn't have to be an infinite list. You don't need 800 of them like Stellaris. I mean, I know Stellaris has got a big build team, and they've been at it for a long time, but give us 80 missions, generate 80 special events / missions that you might touch on 8 or a dozen or 20 of them at the most on any playthrough of the species. That way, the next time you play through, you'll see a few of them, but you'll see another handful that you hadn't seen before. And then when you play through for the third time, you'll see 5 or 6 that you saw in the others, but here's 5 or 6 new ones. And you can get people to keep pushing through that way. Now, I'm sure there's some stuff in here that I have not seen pop up in my... I've probably done 3 full playthroughs now, so I think I'll see more and more stuff like that. But I just dug into one game pretty hard, and I'm about wrapped up with it. And by the end of it, I was just going, geez, this is all same. I'm not seeing anything new at this point. And it made me a little nervous as a player, just going, it's a whole new species, whole new build. But is there nothing else? Because I'm only 100 hours in the game. So for me to be going, is there nothing else yet? I think Stardock every month needs, or every patch needs to add a couple more hard-coded scenarios or events. And just keep trickling them in. 2, 3, 4, 5 of them every patch, every one. Even if it's just 2, just get them in there. And over the course of the months, you'll have dozens or 50 or 80 or 100, and that will get people coming back to see what new kind of cool thing they can trigger. I'm trying to help Stardock, and I'm probably boring the fuck out of everyone else. So let's continue on. So sorry. I've been sick all week, and so I'm just loopy as heck. I got this crazy sinus infection. I'm just like all bubble-headed. I don't feel that bad. It's just, whatever. We'll keep going. All right. So yeah, we've, and then what was the last thing here? We were down to, anyway, approval's pretty easy to rectify. Is you don't have to get that far. In early game, you will find things that can help modify your approval. It's not a mid-game solution thing. And then here we have planetary defense. Yeah, populations resolve, planets class effect. Okay. the amount of damage your colony can take before being defenseless during an invasion. So you don't really have ground troops. You don't see ground combat in the game. You take your space fleet that you'd fight space battles, you drive them into a planet essentially, and it brings up a little screen that's saying, yeah, you're going to try and conquer this planet over the next 4 or 6 months or whatever. There's a little bar showing who's doing better, your invasion or their resistance or vice versa. And if you have a fleet that's not really well designed for ground combat, to take a planet, to siege a planet, you possibly won't get it. But ultimately, that time, those months, you can't instantly capture a planet, period. So really, the higher this number is, and I've seen it go up to like, say, 500 in a pretty advanced game, all it's really doing is buying the defender time to get to make an offensive move with their fleets, to rally their fleet to go destroy the sieging fleet. You're never going to land troops to fight their troops. That's not really what's going on. So when you talk about resistance or the class quality of the planet contributing to its defense, I guess meaning the size and complexity of invading that is kind of what they're leaning into there. Like it's possible mountainous tiles yield more defense, more resistance possibly. I don't know. Maybe. I could be wrong. Whatever. It's just a time factor. So when it's saying it's going to take 4 months to do this invasion or 6 months to do the invasion, whatever, it's just saying, hey guy, your planet is being invaded. You've got so many months before you're either going to win or lose, but are you going to do something about it? You're like, yeah, I'm going to pull as many ships in here as I can, as quick as I can. You try and fight them off. You try and beat them back. That's what it is. Now, I will point out, though, let's look at the, because I don't think I talked about this in my Pops thing too much. Planetary defenses, yeah. So this person here, this is Helen Osh. She has a resolve of 3, I believe. And for citizens, resolve is important for soldiers. All the resolve from a world's citizens is added to the planet's resistance. That's right. So her resolve of 3 up here leads to planet defenses plus 3. Very simple. Now, if you were to eventually learn the soldier technology, you could train Helen as a soldier, and it would probably double or triple the value of her resolve, and would give her planetary defense contribution, would make it a 6 or a 9 or something potentially, as opposed to just a 3. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, I believe all of your citizens, I think even scientists, yeah, even the scientists is lending their 3 resolve to planetary defense right there. So yeah, all citizens help fight. If question, and hopefully a tip. Let's experiment together, folks. I haven't tried this. If one of our planets, core worlds, is under attack, we can get into the population, and we have the technology for soldier. We retrain all of our pops. Let's say there's a dozen of them. We just burn 12 command points, which you should probably have. You probably won't be that hard to have. And you go soldier, 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 soldier. You get rid of all the citizens, all the scientists, all the farmers, all the entertainers. You make everyone a soldier. I think you can do that while you're being invaded to boost this defensive number. If anyone knows or anyone wants to try and find out, there you go. Put it in the comments. I'm curious. I mean, that's a great... It's always... when I watch YouTube, everyone's like, oh, I'm really interested in you guys' opinion on this. And it's like, dude, you got like 100,000 people watching your video on some big channel. It's like, we all know you're not really reading through hundreds of comments. But this... I asked for it because it's like, if you go into the comments and say, yes, that works, that will absolutely help you resist, that isn't for me so much, although I'm curious, but you would help other people reading the goddamn comments on this video when I ask the question. Like, that's like useful, real information. It's like, for me, I don't do a lot of social media. I do YouTube, I do a little bit of Reddit. But for me, it's like, I want to learn stuff, and I want to teach people stuff. That's kind of, I want to laugh a little bit, whatever. But yeah, for me, like, that's like the solid parts of social media, It's like I want to find out about shit about the world, and I want to tell people what little bit I know. And that's what makes it social. So if you are in the same page as me, do the experiment. Get invaded and switch all your pops to soldiers on the fly and see if it makes you last longer or win the fight. I want to know. Unfortunately, I've been playing on modes that are too easy. I haven't had any of my planets invaded yet, so I don't know what's going to happen. But with each playthrough, I am bumping up the difficulty notch. I think I started on easy, which is the default, and then went to normal. But I think there's several notches to go through until I'm on impossible mode. But I'm going to keep working there, playing through. So I'm, despite however I feel about the game, I'm still pretty in love with it right now. I'm pretty new to it. I think I have another 2, 3, 4 full playthroughs. And in the end, whether I'll still be playing this game a year from now, I think very much is going to come down to what unique stuff Stardock adds in. And I only say unless they do some really stellar generative AI stuff, where the generative AI is making missions that feel fleshed out like storytelling, and not just like, yeah, we put some fruits and vegetables in a blender and hit bzzz and said, here's your food drink. You're like, what is it? And they're like, it's food drink. And you're like, oh, all right. I'm not the only one, I'm sure. We've all been living with generative AI pretty solid for the last year or two. Yeah, I'm sure some nerds go way back with it, but I think the big Mid-Journey, all that shit hit pretty hard like last spring, 2023, right? It really just got in everyone's face. But we already can see with the generative writing, the generative artwork, it has a look, a feel, a sound to it. We all recognize it. And it's not horrible, but it is food drink. It's food drink. And so the problem is when I'm playing a game, a nice 10, 15-hour playthrough on the game here, and the game is handing me my 50th food drink. They're like, you want another food drink? And you're like, They're like, food drink. You're going to take your food drink. And I don't want food drink. I want storytelling. And I'm being kind of bitchy, admittedly, to Stardock on this, because they have taken generative AI and really squeezed a lot out of it. They've taken it and integrated it really at a very high level into this game. They've made a good product using a lot of it. And I do respect them for that. Like, they've said, oh, this is a thing. Let's see what we can make with it. And they've made a pretty cool game. I really don't want to give them too hard of a time. And again, if I get 200 hours to play out of the game, I will consider it not a waste of my time or my money at all. Like really, you earn my money. Good job, guys. Good job. Pat on your back. But you either got to step up what you're doing with the generative AI and make food drink, a whiskey drink, a vodka drink, a cider drink, or a lager drink, and then motherfuckers, we will be tub thumping. You know what I'm saying? And here, let me show you my tub thumping tattoo. Hold on. Just kidding. I don't like Chubbawamba that much. Tell you the tattoo's not on my ass. Where it is, I can't show you where that tattoo is. Ooh, okay. And my excuse for all this is that I have a cold right now, so all's forgiven. Let's keep going. Planetary inputs. Okay. Finally, not finally. Population. You have a pop cap. It is 10 right now. You can see the planetary base was 3. The capital cities adding a 7 to it. I guess this building here gives us some stuff. Pop cap of 6 plus. Check it out. Okay. Pop cap 6, but the level of the capital city's tile is a 1, and down here under per level, we get 1 pop cap per level. So 6 plus 7, 6 plus 1 is 7. That's where we're getting this. You could drive that up. You can definitely get pop caps into the 20s. I would assume if you really worked at it, you get it well past 30s, maybe 40s potentially, if you built a bunch of housing tiles and all that other kind of shit. So, but yeah, otherwise, you can see we have 7 pops and a pop cap 10. Here is the month chart. This bar will fill up over 22 months, giving us a new citizen. And you can see It's based off of, we're fertile. That's cool. I think that was a trait we took, plus 25%. Each human is generating one population. That's right. The more carbon-based life forms you put together on a planet, the more reproduction you're going to have, folks. Them's the birds and the bees, and not the silicon-based life forms, though. Not the rocks. They don't work the same way. I only point that out because you'll notice that each of our folks here gives a growth plus 1. Growth plus 1. They're all growth plus 1. There's no way to really modify that. Like as the game starts, and we took fertile is a plus 25%, so that's cool. But that 25% is a multiplier of the number of the total. So our 7 humans give us plus 7. You multiply that by 25, you get, as you all know, 9.75. A little more. And then our pollution gives us a 9% hit on that. So always make, you've got numbers, whole numbers, decimals, but they're, what the hell is the word for that? Not integers, not whole numbers. Is it an integer if it's somewhere on the number line? Yeah. No, it's floating point. God dang it. I'm going to stop talking now because I'm going to make myself like a total idiot. I think of everything in terms of programming, but you got your numbers, you got your percentage multipliers, and that's it. That's it. So you're going to see it's a 20 plus a 3 plus a 1 plus a 1 plus a 5. Now that's that number. Now we're going to multiply it by a 10% and a 25%, and the numbers get really crazy. So almost too crazy, almost too crunchy for humans to really work at. I've heard this game described a little bit as sort of board game mechanics, but the reality is the numbers, as you get into the game, like into mid-game, you have so much stuff going on that short of a calculator and a piece of paper and a pen, you could never calculate stuff on your own. So I like that they show it to us. I do. So you can understand what's going on if you really want to try, but most people are not going to tackle the stacks of metrics to determine what their influence is. And it gets it like you need a scroll bar to roll through some of this shit. Interesting design choice on Stardox. And I might as well point out transport. Yeah, if we had other core worlds, you could very easily, they just added this recently on the Populi patch, which came out last week. You can choose any person, transport them to another world. Vice versa. Super simple. I don't even think it takes control, but it does take time. So it'll take 5, 7, 8 turns, months. Those people will be gone. Your civilization doesn't benefit from them while they're in transit. And so, yeah, be a little cautious, but you can reshuffle, folks. You can make a criminal world. Yeah, a penal colony where everyone on there is a criminal, max criminality. That would be crazy. I might try that one time. What else we got? Yeah, jumping down to planetary inputs. So these are the raw inputs. These are coming from our world. Let's see, where are these coming from? It's not really breaking it down. Minerals are a measure of the planet's raw resources available to be directly applied to construction. Sure, I see a 3 here. But I don't know exactly what that's coming off of. Excuse me. I've got a 3 in my technology. So what I'm doing right now is that when I look at the 3 for mineral input, I see 1 gear, 2, 3, 4. Hold on, let's delete this. So I deleted that out just to see if this would go up to 4. It doesn't. So I don't know where it's getting the 3 because I see 1, 2, 3, 4 gears. Let's look at research. I see 1 light bulb, 2, 3, 4. I see 4 light bulbs. Wealth, 1, 2, 3. That one matches up. Although over here, that's and then there's an extra 3 wealth. So there's 6 wealth. Yeah, that's a little bit opaque to me. I'm not exactly buckling down on that, but presumably, like this wealth is not coming from our pops. Although I'm sure that they can generate wealth. Like here's a bonus to our gross income, but that's down here. This is income. This is input. Food, we have 12. Cool. I have no clue where that's coming from. Like there's no way to work through this that would yield that much food. Does our capital city give us food? No, it doesn't. Remember, the only structure we have built right now is our capital city. So, and then finally, cultural input is 8. We have culture, in this symbol here, this little hut looking thing is an influence or culture icon. We've got a couple of them, but yeah, I don't know. Hold on, I wanted to add that manufacturing spot back in. There we go. Let's do this real quick. I'm going to back out of the panel here. Ah, yeah. I was looking over here at Mars. You can see Mars is a poor class 3 with 2 manufacturing, 2 mineral, no tech, no wealth, no food, and 2 culture significance. But we haven't colonized Mars, so those values are not getting dumped from Mars into Earth. And I'm looking at Earth here from the outside. See, we have an Aurora's Arboretum, the nanite transmitter. It's terrestrial. I don't know how that's calculated, folks. That is black box. That's a black box. All right, I'm not going to sweat it too much. These numbers will go up, though. Say we colonized Mars in a few turns. We sent a colony ship over to Mars, and then the minerals would go from 3 to 5. We'd gain the 2 minerals, and the inputs would go from 8 to 10. We'd gain those 2. They would feed in. Now, they might feed in fractions in like a 1.9 instead of 2, because the further your feeder worlds, your input colonies, let's call them input colonies, right? Because it's planetary input. If Mars became a planetary input to Earth, the further it is from Earth, the more drop off in resources. I don't know if you think of it as like corruption or just loss, decay, whatever. So you can start getting some interesting numbers like 4.9 and 9.9 or 9.7 or whatever. So yeah, you'll see that. That's where it comes from. But yeah, I guess I'm just slightly curious as to where these numbers come from. But that you would change these by adding planetary inputs. Maybe space stations. I don't know if there are any space stations that would directly input. Oh, no, I do have an idea what would. You can do orbital modules on your colonies. Whether they're an input world, like a baby colony, or they're a core world. They, real quick, we'll just jump out and just show you that right here. Orbital improvements. These are like little satellites. They're not full star bases, but yeah, they're just stuff up in orbit. So you can like get a +1 to your food input, a +1 to your wealth input, stuff like that. Add to your planetary defenses. So that would be another way to increase your planetary inputs. So yeah, there's a couple things that can feed into that. But ultimately, you got the inputs, and you've also got the buildings and the structures. Like, for instance, once we make one of these manufacturing districts, it's only going to give us... Well, I'm looking here. I'm just looking. The base effect will be a +4 to manufacturing, but not an input. Not like a whole 1 to our mineral, just FYI. It'll give us extra pollution, and then for the level it's built at, it'll give us more and more manufacturing. But this is the multiplier. This would essentially be a 0.06 times, or 1.06 times whatever the total is, meaning a 6% bonus. And it'll all add together. So this one would give a 0.6. This one might be at a 0.8. It'll multiply and just keep, magnifying. So it gets pretty crazy, pretty quick. However, I only pointed out because there are some improvements you will develop that will give you just a straight +1. It's not a multiplier, it's just a straight 1 to minerals, or a +2 to your wealth just by itself. It generates 2 wealth. It's not a multiplier on top of the wealth of the rest of the planet. So keep an eye out for those structures. As we find them, I'll point them out to you. So The last thing here is looking at the planetary outputs. Inputs, outputs. Yeah. It's an algorithm. It's a function. It's a math function. There you go. So here we go. Manufacturing. I highlight it. It pops it up. It's showing me everything. I haven't found missing stuff. It really accounts for everything. But these lists can get very large. We'll break into this real quick, but let's just jump to research. Yeah. Jump to income. Yeah, it's getting a lot of stuff. Food. Pretty simple. And influence. Influence can get massively long. But yeah, let's do food first since it's simple. Farm inputs 12 times a minus 9% because of pollution. And that lands us at 10.92. So it is obviously calculating to the 100th of the second decimal place, to 1/100th of a whole. And yeah, so that's where the loss is coming from. Yeah, that's where the loss is coming from. Interesting thing about food, I've never quite gathered why this is. You cannot build up food resources. I guess the idea is that it spoils every month. So this number, although you can get your monthly food can be a surplus easily of into the hundreds. You wouldn't want it though, because as far as I can tell, extra food does nothing. Planets produce food that is consumed by your organic citizens. To get more, colonize new worlds, or specialize your citizens into farmers. That's it. Having a plus 50 on your food every month, I would not advise. It's actually sometimes hard to not do. I've switched every person off of farming. I've built no additional farming stuff and still hit plus 80 on food. I almost wish maybe there would be a little market for food, or you could get a 1/10 of an income credit per every surplus food. Something like a little something for it. Because again, I've never tried to make food production, but I've always had more than I needed. Now, obviously, if you had, say, 3 colonies or core worlds, and your population on one was 12 and 8 and 6, and so you've got 30 mouths to feed, but only one of the core worlds produces food, and then that planet got invaded or some shit happened, a Xeno ruined your harvest, or whatever, there's an artifact for that. You could have starvation, and I could see your potentially losing population to it. I believe you absolutely could have people starve, or greatly slow down your growth rate or something. I don't think extra food leads to more people. That might be an interesting take, is that the higher your monthly food surplus, Stardock talking to you here, gives you a little bit extra on your carbon-based life form growth rate. Doesn't have to be the main thing, but it just adds to it. So there would be a reason, theoretically, to have surplus food. Whatever. Okay. So yeah, that's that. But yeah, here's manufacturing. Listen, we'll jump into it. Approval. We talked about approval for the whole colony. Composite view. What does it affect? It affects 2 things that I'm aware of. That is, your manufacturing is straight up multiplied, whatever it is, by your approval rate. It's a big hit to have a 58 approval when you want 100% approval, because you're losing 42% of all your production right there. It is the top numbers, that multiplier. It's a real easy thing to see. It really matters. It's a big impact. Drive up your approval. Get it up there, folks. The other thing that is affected by approval is your research. Right there. Same thing. So approval hits your manufacturing research right off the bat. It's probably one of the most important things to keep a handle on in the game, because your manufacturing and your research are 2 of the most important things you're going to generate in the game, especially in early games. So, but probably the early, mid, and late, to be quite honest with you. However, approval does not affect income. Nowhere in there is there approval. Food, nowhere in there is there approval. And influence, nowhere in there is approval. So not everything is tied to approval, which I actually kind of approve of. I like that Stardock took the time to say, hey, crime affects your income and increase in crime. But that's it. It doesn't drill into everything. You're like, yeah, okay, approval affects your manufacturing and your research, but not everything else. He's like, yeah, it's cool. So it helps you as the player kind of keep a better handle on your, controlling the inputs, outputs of your civilization, and just for your understanding IRL is the player. Okay. But yeah, what else we got in there? Overall, here's our manufacturing inputs, which is mineral input, times some productivity, times our governor, times our, plus our workers, plus our citizens' inputs. And pay attention, anytime you see a percentage, that's a multiplier. Percentage means multiplier, right? You guys get that. Whereas anything that's just a plus without the percentage is I want to say whole number, but it's just an integer value that just gets added or subtracted from it as you go. Order of operations on this, I don't know. I hope it's not from top to bottom of this chart. If I had to guess, all the addition and subtraction is done first to give you a total value, and then the percentages, the multiplications or divisions are worked on top of that. If I had to guess. I could be wrong. Wow. It's funny because any of us could actually, with using simple addition and multiplication, a calculator or paper, work through this and do 3 times 1.01 times 1.1 times 1.28 plus 0.8 plus 105 plus 0 and see if we get 7.31. Or we could do it the other way where we add the 3 plus the 0.08 plus the 1.5 and then multiply by 1.1 and multiply by 1.28. Anyone want to? I haven't done that. I'm not going to do it now. My videos are already long and boring enough. But mission for the comments. If anyone out there is just like, I am feeling like such a massive nerd about Galciv 4, I'm going to find out if this number is generated in the order that it appears, or whether it's additions and subtractions before multiplications, divisions. Question. Submission for someone. Wow. Does anyone else care about this game this much? I don't know. But I do enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I enjoy thinking about it. Research. Yeah. What do we got here? This one's interesting. There's our technology input, which we already know we've got right there. That's literally the technology input. Yeah, and minerals got the mineral input. So, but what else do we got? We have our clever. That's one of the traits we picked for our Terrans. We say, yeah, we want to be clever. It's just giving us a 10% bonus. Our governor, of course, is a pretty brainy guy. We have no workers. We have workers, but workers don't generate any research. Worker meaning production, hammer guys. Citizens give a little bit of research. Remember, citizens are kind of like a generic citizens give you a little bit of everything, but not a lot of any one thing. So citizens is always a safe bet. It's just not optimized. And finally, our scientist is just giving us a +1. Yeah, dude, for real. We have one scientist. His intelligence is 5, and that's multiplied by 0.1, FYI, to get research 1. Is that correct? Hold on. Shit. You son of a bitch. No, it's multiplied by... Oh, crud, what are they doing to get that? Each intelligence is giving me 0.2 of a research. Why am I struggling to figure out how I would make that number? What would I have to multiply 5 times to get 1? 0.2. Oh, that seems so weird. Oh, that's so weird. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. Check it out. Let's get nerdy. Let's get nerdy here, folks. Let's go to our regular citizen. Let's look at Ball Twy here. Ball Twy's intelligence is 5. How much research does this average citizen add using social media, making Reddit posts? What does he add? His TikToks add what to the world? This one's easier to see. 0.5. That means it's 1/10. It's 1/10 of what his intelligence is. So 0.1 of his intelligence goes into research. A scientist, a true scientist, like Brainiac Ben May here, who doesn't post to Reddit or Twitter. He just writes to scientific research papers, which are legit. Gives his 5 intelligence yields a +1 because it's multiplied by 0.2 instead of 0.1. It's twice. It is twice as much as what a regular citizen is. That's where you get it. Yeah. So, all right, cool. I only say it's worth looking at because, as we already talked about, a resolve of 3 leads to a straight planetary defense of 3. It's a 1-to-1. It's a 1 times multiplier, but your research is a 1/10 multiplier of your intelligence if you're a regular citizen. So yeah, it's all sorts of different. It's simple. Let's keep going. What else we got? Yeah, let's look at income. Got our tax rate. We'll jump out. Actually, we haven't even opened our culture or civilization tab. It hasn't been unlocked yet because we haven't finished one of these. No, this one might have gotten it for us. It might be open now. At any rate, we'll look at it. So yeah, you got a tax rate. You could set that to several different grades, from low to high, and it'll adjust the tax rate. I think it's like at 15%, 25%, 33%, 50%, something like that. And that'll adjust the approval rating of people. You can make your entire population happier or sadder based off their tax rate, which is generally true for carbon-based or synthetic life forms. No one likes to pay taxes. What are you going to do? Gross income. Actually, it may not be true for synthetics. I don't know. I know pollution, I don't think affects synthetics' happiness. Taxes, though, probably still would piss them off. Yeah, I think so. Gross income, wealth, tourism income. This is interesting. Remember I was pointing out in the early game, tourism doesn't do much for you? Yeah. Owned galaxy tile bonus is a 4.36. Sure, I don't exactly know where that number's coming from. We might figure it out eventually. But, yeah. 10. It's essentially... Oh, that is so fascinating. How are they getting that number? It looks like 10% of 4.36. It's not 10% of 14.36. Yeah, I am not sure how they're calculating tourism. There's nothing I can do in my brain that's getting 0.44 out of what I'm seeing there. Yeah, Capital City gives us 10? Does it? Okay. I'm missing something. I'm not going to dig into that. Maybe when we have more tourism buildings, there'll be more to work with, but I can't make any of that work. The Capital City giving us a whole number 10? Yeah. No, I got nothing. Okay. Global difficulty modifier is a +3. Oh, that's interesting. That might have to do with the difficulty level we're playing on. It's possible as you play on harder and harder levels, this will go from a +3 to a +2 to a +1 to a 0 to a -1. I don't know. Keep an eye out for that. But I would guess that will change based off of that. Interestingly, I don't think there's a global difficulty modifier on research or production or food or influence. Huh. It's only on income. Well, that is an interesting... It's just interesting that of all the different stats you're working for as you play the game, the one that is tied to the global difficulty setting that you choose as the player is income. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you got less money, it's just... maybe because money is kind of sprinkled on top of everything else. Maybe money is like the cherry on top of your dessert. And it's like, hey, yeah, the easier it is, the more cherries we give you. The harder the game's going to be, we take cherries away. You get less cherries. But otherwise, everything still works. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, we don't even need to dig into this too much, but what do we got? The tax rate, sure. Gross total income, there's a bunch of shit that goes into that. Here's crime, though, at the end. Crime is just a straight up -12% on the total. I don't know. Or is the -12% here just coming right off the plus 26% here, just making that into a plus 14 instead. It's quite possible. It's quite possible it works that way. They might add all the integers together, and then add all the percentages together, and then do that final multiplication. That's probably what they're doing here, if I had to guess. Yeah, that would make the most sense to me. You add all your number, your inputs, and then you multiply by a composite multiplier, whether that be positive or negative in the end. Minus 10% or plus 26%, whatever. So yeah, that's probably what they're doing. But yeah, that's how crime is just digging right into your piggy bank. Now, notice though, real quick, taxes does sit above the gross income. So you're going to calculate your gross income. Crime is going to come off your gross income first. And then whatever's left over, this big number, is going to get multiplied by 33%. And that is your taxable income. So if we adjust the tax rate down to 25%, this number here is just going to go down. But if you try to apply the 33% tax rate in with this 10% and this 26% and this minus 12%, it would not work. I can tell you that the tax is 33% of 24.1 is 7.95. That is it? Oh, God dang you. Gosh darn you guys. I'm just thinking 3 times 7.95 equals 24. Yeah, pretty close. There's probably some rounding errors, but yes, that is where that number's coming from. So, yeah. If you were to change that tax rate to 25% of 24, this would essentially be 6.02 or something. So, yeah, 1/4. Okay. And then influence. Influence is a wild one. Influence is actually worth talking about. Pay attention to this one real quick. I would encourage you. Here we go. In case, if you're in here with me at an hour and 7 minutes into this meandering ass video, check this out. Every one of your colonies, your space stations, all of it builds up a total influence. It's added to by a monthly influence, positive growth every month, every turn, over and over. And that influence total piggy bank just grows and grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger. Even when you're on turn 100, it's grown the whole time. And the influence sphere of your galaxy, of your civilization will just grow and grow. If you were to play in an empty sector where you were the only civilization, there was no one else, if you played long enough, eventually your sphere of influence would encompass the entire sector. You would grow very slowly, and if a more influential Xeno species showed up, their influential sphere may overwhelm and subsume yours, conquering, literally subsuming your whole civilization because their influence is greater than yours. But even with a very small influence growth, you will eventually absorb all the empty space around you, given enough hundreds of turns. So let's break this down over here. Here we go. Influence. My total influence for Earth is 110. It's 100 because I have a capital city here, and the current influence was 10 on turn 1. However, every single month, Earth's influence will grow by 2.7, calculated this way. This monthly growth will go up in a large amount. It overall will influence the total radius in hexes around Earth. And a space station will have the exact same variables with different numbers, to a lesser degree of a core world. So a space station will never be planet Earth, but even a space station out in the middle of nowhere is going to slowly grow its influence piggy bank that will grow every month by some small amount. Maybe its influence will grow by 3 every month. But every month it'll go from 3 to 6 to 9 to 12. And over time, its little sphere of influence will grow. So theoretically, a single space station with nothing else in the sector could, over hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 turns, grow its influence to encompass the entire empty sector. That's how it works. It's creeping growth. The only thing that counteracts it is more powerful influence from Xenos that would push you back. Now, interestingly, you can lose influence or gain influence up here in whole numbers. You could find an artifact or come up with a technology that says, or a cultural, you unlock a cultural feature that says every one of your core worlds gets 100 influence. Now, that's not to your monthly growth. It's a one-time lump sum dumped in that would make this go from 110 to 210. It would just be a one-time dump. You can get those. Some of them are pretty big. I think some of them can be like 500 or 1,000. You can get big influxes of influence. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, planetary base looks like a planet just gives you a +1 by itself. Certain, we are certain. That is an ability we chose, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of see it as almost like a religiosity, like a faith in your own beliefs kind of thing. Excuse me, influence +1, that was a trait we took. So certain certain comes from an ability, influential came from one of our traits. Our governor gives us a 6.5. Our citizens combined all together have an influence of 1.8. Our one scientist is a 0.4. And our cultural inputs are just a +8. Yeah, okay. Sure. And then you got your national influence. So influence controls how far your borders spread. Once borders collide, low influence worlds may culture flip to the control of a civilization with higher influence. Yeah. Now, that culture flip will not happen until their sphere of influence engulfs the entire planet. So the cultural influence bubble, if this is your planet and the bubble is growing closer and closer to your planet's okay until the bubble encompasses it, engulfs it. Then you're going to start running into trouble. And functionally, it's almost like a siege. It's almost like an invasion. You have a certain number of months, although it's not like necessarily super clearly dictated. But yeah, you're on a countdown at that point. It may be years, like meaning 20 turns, 50 turns. It may be a long time, but you will eventually lose the colony. It will just flip to the other side. In whole, they're not unhappy about it. They just join the other side, and they're like, yeah, we're them now. And you're like, fuck. So you can also win that way, potentially. If you've enabled that checkbox in your game's advanced settings, you can win by influence alone. You just do an influence rush, never fire a single shot in the game. You're just so freaking influential, you subsume everything else in the galaxy. So, yeah, that's the thing that can happen. Yeah, influence is an interesting one. I think we're ready to go to the next turn. That's kind of just a quick... So what the point of this 3-part deep dive tutorial has been about was just talking about what you're seeing. But there's a lot more. Look at... Down here, we've only unlocked 3 of the 9 tabs down here. We've never built a single orbital improvement. We've never designed a single ship. We've never gone to war or sieged a planet. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to do. So yeah. Next turn. Boom. Okay. We'll read through this and we'll probably wrap it up for today. Hour and 15 minutes is long enough. But yeah, research complete. Colonial policies is our first technology. It unlocks this civilization screen and allows us to assign policies. And here you can see this is what we've unlocked, these 3 options. And this research will lead to these 2 new lines of research. And you can actually see what they would lead to there. Kimberly's Refuge. And so, but later, a planetary generator. I've never actually read through every research I've gotten. I've always been too lazy to read through everything I got from it. There's well over 100 total technologies in the game. Probably less than 2, but more than 100. but each of them unlocks multiple things. So there's a lot to learn. But maybe on this playthrough, if we're going to play out this variety of Terrans we've created, we're going to either conquer the galaxy and win a playthrough or be defeated. Let's keep going on the in-depth tutorial play series, where we will talk in depth about all of our choices, why we're doing what we're doing. We'll discuss it, and as each new thing is presented, we will talk in detail. Now, that means that that's probably going to be a weekly show, for lack of a better word, that's, an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes at a time. And I'll just do one a week. And we will see how it progresses. It'll be a playthrough, ultimately, where we're trying to win. But we'll talk about every new thing as it comes up. I think that'd be, I won't say fun. It'd be fun for me, honestly. But an interesting way to do it. And in particular, if I take the time to, say, read through all these technology things that I've read many of them, but I've skipped many of them, then I'm getting something out of that too. Is really trying to deliberately do the work of playing the game. And again, I'm never trying to make. I don't make content. I find it really entertaining to think and talk about this stuff. And again, imagine someone's listening. What are you gonna do? It's like turning up the gameplay to 11. It's like it's 10, but it's like I do this, I get a little more out of it. So yeah, that's why I make these silly videos. But while we're here, this is new. The planetary generator, massive source of power production to increase manufacture on a planet. You'll notice it is colony unique. So you got 3 levels of any structure: a colony unique, civilization unique, and galactic unique. Because it's colony unique, it means every one of our core world colonies can build their own planetary generator. If it was civilization unique, it would mean that we can only have one in our civilization, but another Xeno civilization could make one of their own. And finally, galactic. Someone's at my door. That's it for. I'm going to go answer the door. Next time we will cover this.